Hi, hello. Welcome to another episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is August the 12th, 2023. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits, and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. So far, it's been a solid Saturday. Let's see. I woke up with a strong urge to take a walk. Only problem was that somehow, some way, I like tweaked my ankle or something. Like really, the only strenuous thing I can think of that I did was walked. I walked on Tuesday. That's it. Like it's not like it was crazy, but I've been told this by my nutritionist. But this way back when I was a little guy. But it's just like, hey, you have all of this weight on your body, on this skeletal frame. And, all that weight is going to make things more problematic for your back, for your joints, along the way as you get older. And I'm like, sure, I know. But, unfortunately, now that I'm, at the age of 32, even though I've had these kind of problems, even like, mid 20s, where it's just like, okay, like I would love to be more active. I was being more active at my job. And next thing you know, it's like my body feels like it's breaking down. And it's just like, yeah, like it can't sustain the weight. And it's like, well, I have to lose the weight. So like I have to do these activities and it's so painful. But back to the walk. I said, you know what? I'm going to make it happen. And I woke up early and I'm like, this is just, it's too good. I don't want to like just sit here and nurse my little hurt ankle. I want to get out there. Which is weird that I'm so hyped to do this walk, but that was my treat for Saturday morning. So we went on and did it. Nice little walk. I kind of did like a half measure instead of the full one, but I was like, this is nice. It's nice to be outside and it's not super hot. It was good. The vibes were right. It was worth it. Also, with some Advil and a little nappy poo, we're doing a little better. Ankles feeling a little bit less rusty, maybe. We'll see. Time will tell. It's an eternal struggle. Let's see here. Food corner. There's not much to report. I finally made some good house coffee again. That's nice. I'm back on my yummy era with my coffee. Essentially, I decided to add some creamer, or not creamer. I'm sorry, whipped cream. I had like a little bottle of whipped cream, and I just blasted it, and that did the trick. It made it a little bit more of what I wanted. At least, the opening sips were really yummy, so they were hitting. So we're good. Maybe we're back in business. Let's see here. Oh, and I had some peanuts. I've eaten some peanuts as a little snacky. All right. Enough about me. Let's go ahead and get into some news. Let's talk about some news. From Reuters. 41 feared dead in migrant shipwreck in central Mediterranean. 41 migrants are thought to have died in a shipwreck last week in the central Mediterranean, Italian authorities and United Nations agencies said on Wednesday, citing survivors who have been taken to the Italian island of Lampedusa. Local public prosecutor Salvatore Vella and 3 UN agencies confirmed media reports that 4 people who survived the shipwreck had told rescuers that they were on a boat carrying 45 people, including 3 children. The survivors, a 13-year-old boy, a woman, and 2 men, arrived in Lampedusa on Wednesday, almost 6 days after the sinking of their boat. The International Organization of Migration, or the IOM, UNICEF, and UNHCR said in a joint statement. Let's see. The boat had set off from Tunisia's Sfax, a hotspot in the, I'm going to say, quote-unquote, migration crisis, but capsized and sank during the night after being hit by a big wave. The survivors were quoted by multiple sources, including ANSA news agency. Let's see here. The Italian Red Cross and Sea Watch charity rescue said the 4 had survived by hanging onto life jackets and or other inflatable rubber devices, and then finding another empty boat at sea on which they spent several days adrift. So it's pretty harrowing. It's pretty fucking major. But, it's good that at least some people were able to, survive and, tell the tale. Also, at least from what I've seen on the surface of the story, there hasn't been like any untoward, shit done to the migrants in this situation. At least the ones that were surviving, and no one did anything like fuck up the boat or anything like that, or push people back. So you kind of take the does where you can here, but obviously any kind of loss of life is very unfortunate, very sad. Also, to add, on Sunday, the Italian Coast Guard reported that two other shipwrecks with 57 survivors, two dead, and more than 30 missing. And media reports said that they also involved at least one vessel that had departed from Sfax on August the 3rd. But that was not the same ship. It's a different incident, it's believed. Let's see here. Separately, Tunisian authorities said on Monday they had recovered 11 bodies from a shipwreck near Sfax on Sunday, with 44 migrants still missing from that incident. So yeah, I mean, sadly, it is a common thing that these things happen. I do try to cover the highlighted stories, at least bring attention and conversation there about it. I do hate that they label it as like a migration crisis. I don't think that there would be a crisis. Once again, I said it before, I'll say it 1,000 times. If you just had better open borders, if people could actually, flee from a situation and get out of that negative, bad situation and go to Europe and actually be processed without having to be like, oh, well, you can't be here, you didn't go through the right channels. This shit would just be better. It would just be easier. And I think it would lighten the burden on Italy, as opposed to making them like the gatekeepers of it, as they like to like position themselves in this conversation. That it's them and the human traffickers that they're trying to stop. So I don't know. That's maybe for another episode. But anyway, we can move along. From CNN, Zelensky says all officials in charge of military recruitment offices dismissed amid corruption scandal. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has dismissed all officials in charge of regional military recruitment centers amid a widespread corruption scandal. A scandal linked to the procurement of wartime supplies had already led to Zelensky firing a slew of senior Ukrainian officials at the start of the year, and prompted Ukraine's Deputy Defense Minister Vyacheslav Shapovalov to resign after allegations of corruption surfaced in the media. Zelensky announced the latest dismissals in a statement on Friday. Let's read part of that here. In total, there are 112 criminal proceedings against officials of the military registration and enlistment offices. Among the issues Zelensky cited: illicit enrichment, legalization of illegally obtained funds, unlawful benefit, illegal transportations of persons liable for military service across the border. So, I mean, essentially, this kind of shit is like, hey, there was one example of a guy who's like, I'm going to, allow people to skip the military recruitment, even though this is like a mandated thing. All the men of like able-bodied age are supposed to be fighting right now. I'll let them pay me off and I'll pocket that money and they don't have to go. And then there's other officials out there who are, helping or even escorting people get across the border, letting them go. If like, hey, I'll let you, you pay me, I'll look the other way. But, kind of back to, main ex guy who I'm, not naming the name of because I don't have it readily available. He's lining his pockets. Meanwhile, across, in another country, in Spain, he's buying up a home. That's what I'm trying to say. He's getting his little mansion together, and, I imagine, when the time's right, he's just going to blow on over, get on out of here. But, essentially, with all eyes on Ukraine, for the, obviously the war, but also the fact that they're trying to become a part of NATO, that is a big deal. One thing that's been launched against them is, charges of steep corruption in the country. Now, I mean, granted, when you say that, it's like, you could say the same thing about Britain. You could say the same thing about the U.S., China, wherever. There are corrupt officials, corrupt peoples all over, they are in the system. They are in the works. So, I think it's a valiant thing that, Zelensky is trying to do this, and, they are trying to root out corruption, just for their own benefit, but also, to try to, have this clean, sterling record or a better record of handling corruption so that they can get, maybe their NATO membership if that ever happens. Who knows on that one? But let's see here. I want to read a little bit more. He said the decision was to dismiss all regional military commissioners. This system should be managed by people who know exactly what war is and why cynicism and bribery in time of war are high treason. Soldiers who have been to the front or who cannot be in the trenches because they have lost their health, lost their limbs, but have saved their dignity and have no cynicism, they can be entrusted with this recruitment system. Every military commissioner against whom there is a criminal investigation will be held accountable. And officials who confuse their shoulder straps with profit will definitely be brought to justice. In the previous round of, roundups for this corruption shit, he had also said, hey, you guys can't leave. Like, so for that guy in Spain, like, nah, dude, you're not going nowhere. You're not ever going to get to see that spot, bro. Hopefully that goes well. Hopefully, he, puts some heads together and, stamps that out, I guess. That would be nice. Let's see. Let's go ahead and move along. From CBS News. Iran set to free 5 U.S. citizens in exchange for access to billions of dollars in blocked funds. Biden has signed off on a politically charged agreement with Iran to bring home 5 American citizens in exchange for the regime gaining access in the coming weeks to billions of dollars in blocked funds sitting outside the heavily sanctioned country. CBS News has learned. Some $6 billion of that money is currently in a restricted bank account in South Korea that is inaccessible to the heavily sanctioned regime. The prisoners involved in the agreement include Simak Namazi, who has been held in Iran for nearly 8 years, Imad Shargi, a Washington, D.C. resident, and Morad Tabaz, a U.S.-UK national. 2 other Americans who wish to remain unidentified will be a part of the agreement, a source familiar with the deal says. Namazi, Shargi, Tabaz, and 1 unidentified prisoners were released from Iran's notorious Evin prison under house arrest on Thursday, according to the White House and an attorney for Namazi's family. The 5th prisoner had already been held under house arrest. So, this is a really big development. Much like how we, as the U.S., we don't negotiate with terrorists. That's not what we do. We have that stance that we say openly and broadly. We're not the only country, though, that says that kind of shit. And, Western countries aren't the only ones that kind of say that shit. So, Iran's under a similar kind of situation. They said, hey, you guys have violated these laws for these reasons, whatever, you're going to jail. And essentially they're like, yeah, that's just how it is. But we have control over things that, these countries need and want, which is money. And I've talked about this when it comes to the Afghanistan situation. When the Taliban took over, there was access to money, there was reserves that they're supposed to be getting, and America was essentially like, no, we're already sanctioning you guys are already not cooperating, and we're not sure if we're gonna give you that money. And in that situation I felt very uncomfortable about that, because it's like, it's their money, like they should just have access to it. It's crazy that they have to go through all these channels, and you're almost using this as like, almost about it, it's like you're using this as a sanction, you're withholding this money from them. And I feel very eerie, very about it. In this situation, it's no different, but essentially they're like, okay. We've been trying to negotiate with you guys for a very, very, very long time here. There's also another story here, I believe, that took place like in 2016, where there was a negotiation where they actually did just fly over money, like in a money exchange for prisoners, which is like, wow, it sounds like a negotiating with terrorists. But essentially, that had some controversy to it, and much like this has controversy to it, though they do say that the way they're going to distribute the money is it's only going to go to humanitarian like projects. It's only going to go to aid for the people who need it in the country. Though skeptics and critics are going to say, hey, fine, but we all know how fucking money works. You're saving them money then so that they can use it on, terrorist, enterprises and things of that nature. So people are naysaying and booing that. But I do say that if this is getting people home, good, just fucking do it. But that being said, I do hate how the whole sanctions process works, how it goes about, because essentially, we kind of talked about it, yesterday with, the Uganda situation. They have means to just get around these sanctions. They're like, hey, we're going to sell oil. We're going to do that kind of shit. And in this situation with Iran, they're no different. They're like, hey, we're going to just sell oil to China, to Russia, and we're going to be okay. We're going to make what we can here. We still need that fucking money. But like, what I'm saying is they're still dripping in funds. And all you're doing is just making life harder for the people who need the money the most. So that's forever upsetting to me, and I'm glad that at least these people who are, prisoners are at least getting a chance to go home. And I mean, granted, that's still up in the air. I believe the whole process is set to be completed by September, but I feel like things are on the road here. I think that hopefully these people will be able to get home, because goddamn. Ugh, yeah, you're not, I'm so glad that I am in this regard. I'm glad I'm in the Imperial Court. I don't gotta go nowhere. Shit, I don't have no walkable city for sure, but like at least I'm here. I'm posted. I have no reason to get a passport as of now, thank God. Even though the more news I look at, I'm like, maybe I need to get mobile like that. Maybe I need to be a little evasive. I don't know. Sorry, I'm chitty chatty right now. I'm in my head. But, all right, we have one more thing to cover, and then I'll let you go. You can enjoy your Saturday. No more news. Oh, let me check my drink. Okie dokie. From the Associated Press, Supreme Court blocks, for now, Oxycontin maker bankruptcy deal that would shield the Sacklers. The Supreme Court on Thursday temporarily blocked a nationwide settlement with Oxycontin maker Purdue Pharma that would shield members of the Sackler family who own the company from civil lawsuits over the toll of opioids. The justices agreed to a request from the Biden administration to put the brakes on an agreement reached last year with the state and local governments. In addition, the High Court will hear arguments before the end of the year over whether the settlement can proceed. The deal would allow the company to emerge from a bankruptcy as a different entity, with its profits used to fight the opioid epidemic. Members of the Sackler family would contribute up to $6 billion. But a key component to the agreement would shield family members who are not seeking bankruptcy protection as individuals from lawsuits. I want to take a quick break right here, because this is part of the reason why I'm okay with people pumping the brakes on this and saying, let's actually, maybe talk about the justice aspect and not just saying, hey, let's make sure people get some money, let's actually just get the money to the victims and let's move on. Because something that's popped up to me, like I was just kind of doing some listening, because me, I'm an avid podcast listener, and I heard a story from the Journal about this drug maker called Mallinckrodt. And I'm just going to reference this from the NPR News if you would like to look it up. But drug maker Mallinckrodt aims to avoid paying an opioid settlement to victims. Now, essentially, they were kind of in a very similar situation to like the Sacklers, though they aren't like individuals or anything like that. This isn't like a family. This is like, it was a family. They got into business, whatever. Essentially, they said, okay, you got us. We have all these lawsuits. We're trying to get out of it. We're trying to squirm out of it. Now it looks like we can't. So what if we just sign the settlement? We'll pay you X amount of money and we'll call it good. And they said, fine. Same argument as we're talking like with the Sacklers Purdue Farmer bullshit. Let's get the money to the victims. Awesome. They pay about a year's worth of that agreement, and now they are trying to renegotiate it again. Essentially, they are trying to, I think, like more or less file bankruptcy again or some kind of fucking shit. And I just find that shit disgusting. And I think that if they can get away with that there, what's stopping the Sacklers from doing it? Now, they say that they don't have this blanket shield from lawsuits. Or the justices directed the parties to address whether bankruptcy law authorizes a blanket shield from lawsuits filed by opioids. I just don't want to see these motherfuckers wiggle out of it at the end of the day. And I still think, because we talked about this shit before, I don't think $6 billion is enough. Like, I don't. At the end of the day, these people are going to clear money off of this shit. They are going to make money off this shit, especially over time. So I don't want to hear it. Like, at the end of the day, by this time any of this money gets to people who need it, the people who deserve it, the people who've had to go through this fucking shit, the ravages of opiates, it's not gonna equal anything out. So I say let's put the brakes on. Let's actually look at this shit deeper. I'm all for that. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if when the dust settles after the Supreme Court actually looks at this shit, that it just goes through any fucking way. You know what I mean? So I'm not like getting my hopes up that, things are going to get better in the situation, but, I'll take whatever we can get. And at least a better review, hey, that's something, right? Whew. But that's all we have for today. Hopefully it's a little bit lighter, breezier episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you made it this far, you're the best around. But if you'd like to help support financially, I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Isaiah News. If you'd like to support the effort, you become a newsie. I shout you out on the podcast. I shout out a project, whatever you'd like me to shout out. And if you'd like to hit me up for free, there's a free way to do that. IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. I'm also on all of the socials. You can comment on the YouTubes. Hopefully you're subscribed to the YouTube. You can thumbs up on anything. You can do all the reviews, all the high stars, I hope. Would you kindly, please? And yeah, that's really all I have for today. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for being a friend. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.